Welcome back to Brain Pro Metal Talk, your home for heavy metal news and commentary. Today, we discuss the possibility of a Judas Priest and Iron Maiden shared tour. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell notification. Let's listen in.
But I even not at all what I'm talking or thinking about at all. Yeah.
Is that a possibility, you think? Is that because
I don't think so.
They're not past all their stuff, you don't think, or?
I'd really be shocked. Thank you, Larry, for the call. As always, I would be shocked. I mean, I know that's a fantasy sort of tour for most metal fans. Priest, Maiden, again. I say again because way in the early 80s they did tour together and they haven't since. But I just don't see it happening. And the reason why, one of the biggest reasons why, and if I'm just again being honest, which always, honesty is a very dangerous thing to a lot of people when you talk about this business sometimes, but if I'm being totally honest, one of the big sticking points would be, as it is with most tours, trying to put something together, money and billing. And the simple reality of it is Iron Maiden are a far bigger draw right now and have been for a long time around the world than Judas Priest. So do you think Judas Priest, who predates Iron Maiden, and to me, I've always felt is the second most important band after Black Sabbath to metal, you think they're going out opening and taking less money for Iron Maiden? Because there's no way Iron Maiden would open for them because Iron Maiden is a bigger band. That's not stirring the pot. That's not shit talking. That's simple fact in terms of draw and attendance and guarantees and money and merch and everything, every box. It's not about who's better. It's not about who you like better. It's not about who's more influential. It's just simple business. And business is what is the second word in music business. And that plays a huge role on why things do and do not happen. So Priest, from their perspective, and I totally get it, as sort of founding fathers here, are they going to be comfortable going out playing second fiddle and billing and money to Maiden? Now, here's if you want to pull this apart a little bit further, something that's pretty interesting that could bode well for this maybe happening one day. So I'm going to argue bring a counter argument here. And I was shocked to see this for the reasons I just said. But Judas Priest are opening for Ozzy Osbourne in Europe. They're billed as special guests, but they're opening. They're the opening act. They're the first band before Ozzy. There's no other way to say it. Special guest to Ozzy Osbourne. And that tour was supposed to happen this year. And then when Ozzy blew everything out and rescheduled for next year, it's still like that. So if you got Priest in a place where they're willing to play a special guest slot to Ozzy, not Sabbath, to Ozzy solo, maybe anything is possible. Because the thing that's changed is, sadly and tragically, Priest do not have Glenn Tipton, for the most part, actively involved in touring with the band. So if you're going to go out there and assuming they're not going to bring KK back, which when KK was on a couple weeks ago, he said there's been no communication. KK had a great line. I said, "You've been in touch with anybody in the Priest camp?" He goes, "No, you can't shop in the store when the door is locked to you," or something he said along those lines. But assuming that, the other thing is you've got a Judas Priest that's down to just Rob and Ian as original members. So maybe that gets factored in terms of a logic for accepting what the billing is. I don't know. Can only, pull it apart from what the facts bear out. But if you look at it from the standpoint of Iron Maiden, they're playing, in some cases, multiple nights in arenas with no name support act. Steve Harris's kid, which nobody knows who they are yet. And they're doing unbelievable business around the world. Stadiums, festivals, arenas. What are you worried about co-headlining with anybody with? You don't need to. You literally don't need to. If you notice, Iron Maiden doesn't even play the American rock festivals. They're not on any of them. I asked their manager that. He goes, we don't need to. Why would we do that? We control our own show. It's our stage. It's 2 hours. It's our thing. We fill the building. Why do we need to go do that? So they're kind of on their own planet right now. And they have been for a really long time. But a lot of people, myself included, would love to see it. But I would not hold my breath. Let's say hi to Toby, who is in Connecticut. He joins us today on a Free for All Friday. Hey, Toby.
Great to talk with you, Eddie.
Thank you.
Quick thing, I just wanted to say, just hear me out. I know the gimmicks are something that fans sometimes pull onto. One of the best bands with a gimmick is Kiss with the makeup, and they got rid of the gimmick and they even brought it back. It was so good. But sometimes the gimmicks can shoot a band in the foot. And when you talk about bands that should have been famous that didn't, like sometimes their gimmick was just too much that the band was just doomed. And so for me, the band that I thought of when all this going down memory lane, thinking about bands that I really loved that should have been famous, they didn't, it was a group called Life, Sex, and Death from the mid-90s.
Oh, yeah. Stanley, the alleged homeless guy, yeah.
Right, and it's like, oh my God, it was like, I remember seeing them, I was in college, I remember meeting him, and it was like, oh wow, this is great, these guys are taking out this homeless guy. Meanwhile, you come to find out now years later, especially when I went down a rabbit trail, a couple weeks ago, just looking back about it, was that, the guy was a regular guy, he was kind of like Andy Kaufman doing this character, and that it actually he was so much this homeless guy that even when it was just him in the band, he was still pooping his hand and doing all this stuff that the band was like, oh my God, we got to stop this madness.
I think not only was he not homeless, Toby, but I believe he actually was wealthy. I think he had a lot of money. He came from like a wealthy background or something, from what I heard.
He was. His parents were rich. He's now this very rich investment banker that, some of these guys on some of these sites were trying to get interviews with him, and he's totally, media silent, cut himself off. But the guitarist says, yeah, I talk to him every once in a while. For those that are concerned, he's still alive, and he's doing very well.
Yeah, Alex Kane was in that band, right? Alex Kane.
Yes.
Because I saw Alex, I was walking into the Rainbow when I was in LA last week, and thanks, Toby, for the call. It's a good call. That's interesting. And that by the way, that could be a whole show one day. Best gimmicks that any band ever did. Well, if there's an idea, jot that down, Ed. Maybe we'll do that one day. That'd be fun. But I saw Alex Kane, who was the guitar player in that band. I ran into him literally at the Rainbow a week and a half ago. I was walking out, he was walking in. Alex plays in Stars now every once in a while, STARZ, real good guy. And just had a quick hello as we were walking by each other in the Rainbow. And one time Alex gave me a ride when I was in LA somewhere, and we were talking, and he was telling me more of the story of that whole thing. But for those that don't remember what the caller was talking about, the band, the initials LSD stood for Life, Sex, Death. The singer's name just went by the name Stanley, and it was purported that he was a homeless guy. And they found him, and he could sing, and they made him the front man of the band, and that was his shtick. And it turned out to all be like, it was all nonsense. The guy was not, and he was kind of doing a character or something. Band never really got way far, really very far in terms of popularity, but they had a moment there where everybody was talking about him, and I want to say it was probably late 80s, early 90s, if my timeline is correct. I think they even had a major label deal like Warner Brothers or something they ended up getting signed to. Yeah, but when you think of you think of bands that are doing like gimmicks or an act. For some, it becomes sort of an albatross and they can't ever make it work and they drop it. And for others, it becomes a hugely big marketable thing that people accept. Obviously, the biggest example of that ever would be Kiss with the makeup and the costumes and the identities. And then you've got a ton of other bands that have tried to do a gimmick sort of thing and they just can't get anybody to buy into it. They can't get it going.